I was in the AMs painting Warhammer when, as a bit of background noise, I put on Asmongold's video of him reacting to the new Star Wars Outlaws game. He played it for about 3 hours and then stopped and kind of went into a exhausted rant. Had a little bit of a breakdown.
If I go to Taco Cabana again and they give me a chicken quesadilla instead of a steak quesadilla, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. Maybe I'm like melodramatic, right? Like, this game's genuinely, I'm starting to go through like an existential crisis over this shit, man. It's been the second time it's happened this week, and I'm so fucking sick of it, man. I'm so fucking sick of getting the wrong type of quesadilla. I'm just such an angry old man. I get steak, and it's like 14 or 13 if I get chicken, because chicken's cheaper. And they said it was $15. And so I'm like, okay, thank God, this time I'm going to get steak. And I get... I just think this game sucks, honestly. I'm actually stressed out in real life over this game. Like, this game's stressing me. This game's upsetting me. Like, I'm Disney. I'm drained, bro.
Obviously, I know this has been played up a fair bit by the character he portrays and the fact that he's a bit of an entertainer, but there was quite a lot of truth to it, I felt. A lot of his body language, a lot of the way he was looking. He looked exhausted, fed up. He was struggling to explain exactly why he hates the game. It's easy to say it's because it's a very soft, cookie-cutter, railroaded story, very kid-friendly, with cheap dialogue. But I think there was a far deeper reason than that. Something that's been plaguing the games industry for quite a while. Another issue that's been plaguing the games industry for quite a while. I think the real reason he's found this game in particular so offensive is far more subtle than that. And it's easily confused with that first point. And he stumbles closest to the answer when he says this.
See, this is the way that my brain works. I see a bunch of invisible walls, animals that you can't kill, combat seeming to be one-dimensional and garbage, and I'm like, this is literal, like, that's all I care about, really. Like, I can't kill the animals, but I can pet them.
Gabe Newell, president of Valve, you know who he is. Steam, Half-Life, Team Fortress, Portal. This guy knows games design. None of these games were particularly groundbreaking in their visual aspects, which is a big obsession with modern gaming. But all of these games were astoundingly legendary titles. Here is what he had to say on Reinforcement.
I go play games to have fun. And so we had to come up with some notion of what fun was. We knew it was an ad hoc definition, and it was the degrees to which the game recognizes and responded to the player's choices and actions, right? You know, in behavioral science, you would say we're explicitly talking about what were reinforcers and what the reinforcement schedules were, right? At that point in time, that was a useful way of making design decisions. The point I would make is, if I go up to a wall and shoot it, to me, it feels like the wall is ignoring me. I'm getting a narcissistic injury when the world is ignoring me. So does this, like, to me, I was trying to convey to the user a sense of, yes, you were making choices. Yes, you were progressing, which meant the game had to acknowledge that back to you. If you shoot at a wall, there have to be decals. If you kill a bunch of Marines, the Marines have to run away from you, right? You have to have this sense of the game acknowledging and responding to the choices and actions and progressions that you've made. Otherwise, it loses any sort of impact.
When people talk about a game respecting your decisions, I feel like the conversation has gone far too large scale, usually used in the example of like a Telltale game, related to the story. You tell John that you don't like his shoes, a little message pops up that says John will remember this, and then a couple scenes later, when John's trying to save your life, he will decide not to, remembering what you said about his shoes. That's not really what I'm talking about here, when I'm talking about reinforcement, or having an effect on the world. What I'm talking about is far more subtle than that, especially when you're talking about fun. Because I think fun is very specifically linked to this, and it is the small stuff. It's the details. That's what people find fun. Gabe gives the example, shooting a wall in a shooter. If there's no evidence, no decal, no casing on the ground, the scary result is that your brain doesn't really ask, does this wall exist? The evidence is there. You can see the wall exists. The more damaging effect is your brain thinking, do I exist? Am I a real actor in this world? The world is, in a way, easy to fake. Star Wars Outlaw is a good evidence to this. Asmongold even brings it up when he mentions what he likes about the game.
Okay, but like I like the visuals of it at least. Like that's what I like. I like the visuals of the game. That's it.
It's very easy to have a town with villagers that walk around, they chat about their lives, there's evidence of unfinished projects laying around the town. Your brain thinks, wow, this is a real place. Here's evidence that people have been living here, that this exists, what I'm looking at. But that's not really what's important. What's important is not, is this world real? It's, am I real? I'm not trying to be a armchair psychologist here. I'm being absolutely genuine. And this is what Gabe calls acknowledgement. The wall cannot ignore you. If the wall's ignoring you, it's not that you don't think the world exists. It's that you don't think you exist. That's what's going on subconsciously in your brain. You feel as if you are a ghost who's inhabiting the main character until the next cutscene, unable to act on anything or do anything that's outside of the bounds of what should be happening at that moment. When it should be the other way around. You should be a character in your own story. You should be able to make decisions and have impacts and act on the world. Again, I'm not talking about affecting the story here. You can have a very linear game with no story choices be super fun because it focuses on the right kind of acknowledgement, the physical, the tangible one. So when Asmon explains that the cities are good, but the invisible walls and the inability to kill animals is bad, this is what he's subconsciously trying to say. The world is real and cool, and I'm engaged with it, but I'm not. I'm not real. Every time he bumps into an invisible wall or shoots an animal and it doesn't die, he is having
a narcissistic injury.
He is feeling less and less real in his own story. Asmongold, like most people, wants to feel acknowledged by the game. And this isn't really a preference thing. This is universal. How much you can tolerate the lack of it just kind of varies. It's not a decision. It's not a design decision. It's a straight up flaw to not have this in a game. As much as having dialogue too quiet in a movie is just bad. You can't hear what's going on in the movie. You can't engage with the story, which is the whole point of the movie. This is why when Asmon plays a new game, his first instinct usually is to try and jump off the edge of something. Try and kill his character. Try and go out of bounds. Shoot an NPC he's not supposed to. Not that this is the fun of the game. It's just that he needs to know that his character is real, that he is a real player in the game. Every time something like this doesn't happen, he's dissuaded that this game is going to respect his choices. Compare this to games that he does like. He goes on in this little rant about Dark Souls. Dark Souls is a game that very much acknowledges you as the player. In the small, important stuff. Your weapon hitting a wall. Crates breaking when you jump on top of them. Cliffs, easily jumpable. The ability to strip your character down to being completely naked and trying to punch a boss to death. The game never stops you doing any of this, because it respects you. Even though a lot of these things are pretty pointless in the grand scheme of the core gameplay loop. Is the gameplay loop damaged by not being able to break boxes, or having your weapon hit a wall, or allowing yourself to depower your character so significantly? Not really, but that's not what's important. What's important is feeling that you are an active actor in the world, that feeling that the world is respecting you, feeling that you are real, that your choices matter, not in a grand scheme of story, but your choices matter literally in what buttons you press. If you decide to jump off that cliff, your character jumps off the cliff. It was the day before recording this video that I had the strangest urge to play through Halo 3 again with one of my friends. For the most part, it is considered a legendary classic. Asmongold even brings it up in the video as one of the great games he played as a kid. I thoroughly enjoyed playing through the entirety of the campaign, even though I've probably done it countless times. Yet every time, I am entertained. I'm never bored. But why is that? Its story is super cliche. There's no branching narrative or different choices I can make. This is pretty straightforward and railroady as it gets for a campaign, which usually doesn't really tend itself much to replayability. But why does it feel so fun, so free? It's because the game respects you. Everything about the game and its world respects you as the character. How the Master Chief interacts with the world is more important than the world itself. I could never quite put my finger on, when I was younger, why this game felt so real compared to other games, and most games since. Decals, casings, subscreens, localized damage, bushes moving when you run through them, random rocks smashing, icicles on this one mission in this one cave that if you shoot them they fall down and smash on the ground. Every single loose object in the world has a weight and a physicality to it, and every single attack and weapon has some sort of punch and impact. Literally everything, in Gabe's words, respects you. Even if I'm just running to the next objective and kicking a traffic cone out of the way, that is the game respecting me, respecting that I was there, that I was running in that direction. Even the NPCs, who fight back when you start murdering them, they have voice lines about how you've gone crazy and they need to defend them. I feel like what modern games design would be teaching you is, does this stuff matter? Is this core to the gameplay experience? Being able to shoot your own teammates? No, but that doesn't matter. This is more important than the core gameplay experience, in a way. This is proof, evidence that you exist. The NPCs imply from your actions what to do next, whether to get in vehicles, whether to follow you, whether to be on guard. They make comments about how the fight's going, about what they've just done, a kill they've just made, how you've just rammed your warthog into a wall. They let you know what they're doing, what they're thinking. If they have to wait at a checkpoint, they'll let you know.
We'll secure the area, sir.
When I was playing through the campaign, I gave a fuel rod to one of the ODST troopers at the beginning of one of the missions. Mainly so I could identify him. And in other games, any sort of supporting NPCs would be either invulnerable or they would be deleted as soon as you enter a cutscene and respawned at the next objective or on a set railroaded path. They would be zapped out of existence as soon as you looked away from them or ventured into the next zone. Not here. He followed us, getting in and out of vehicles. He helped us take out the Covenant. He let us know that he was going to wait for us at every checkpoint as we delved deeper into the base, and then once we had our cutscene and came back out, there he was waiting for us again. He transferred into the Hornets and flew out with us to the next objective. He stuck with us through about 80% of the entire mission, from start all the way up to the very end, when it was the final confrontation, where it was only the player characters that were allowed to venture through that last door. And I can almost hear what the modern games designers at these AAA companies are thinking when I tell a story like this. Does this make the game fun? Does this matter? Is anybody going to notice this? What gameplay can you actually derive from this mechanic, if you'd even really call it that? It's not about that. That's not what is important. What's important is the subconscious. It's that you are being recognized as a real being, and the world is being recognized as a real being. Even the individual little troopers that are just there to shout out comical lines as you're slaying aliens are being respected. And I'll say it again, this is not a preference. This is not a nice thing to have. This is essential. I know that may be hard to believe, but games that lack this are objectively worse. And I know what you could be thinking. Does it really matter? These are just nice to haves. Is it really that important? Surely the gameplay, the game feel, that is what's most important. I can prove to you that this is what is most important. I can give you proof that this is a universal experience, a universal metric for how fun a game is. What is the biggest game of all time? No, what are the two biggest selling games of all time? Grand Theft Auto and Minecraft. What do they have in common? On the surface level, basically nothing. One's a story-driven, kind of gritty shooting and driving game. The other is basically Lego with extra steps. You could maybe say they're both open world, but pretty much everything is these days. You could say they're sandbox. Kinda. That's kinda getting at it. Both of these games do the respecting you as the player to the max. In GTA, you can shoot NPCs in different places, in the legs and the arms, and they'll react accordingly. Their animations will shift and stumble. Your animations will even morph ever so slightly depending on if you're getting in from slightly different angles or in slightly different scenarios. Car bodywork morphs depending on how hard you hit something and at what angle. Civilians will be constantly commenting on what you're doing, whether you're driving crazy or shooting up the place or even just looking at someone funny. The main characters in GTA 5 comment on things. When you switch character, they're doing their own little things to show you that they're actually existing outside of your perception. They're being respected just as much as you are. Even super subtle things like flying your camera over to a character when you switch to them keeps consistency. It keeps things real rather than just having it fade to black and then having you teleport to the new character that's just been waiting in a blank void for you. There's little to no limits in GTA to what you can shoot, what you can steal, what you can drive, what weapons you can use. And when there is a limitation, it hits you like a truck. It almost makes you reconsider how good the game was that you were playing. I'm sure we all remember going up to one of the large passenger planes in GTA 5 and being pretty disappointed that you couldn't fly them. And believe it or not, you have the same thing in Minecraft. You can literally do whatever you want. Every single object and physical block in the game is tangible, destroyable, and interactable. Jumping on crops damages them. Hitting your friend's dog will send it into a rage and have it try and kill you. Making a skeleton shoot another skeleton will force them to see each other as enemies and start fighting. In this game that lots of people consider is for kids, in its main gameplay mode, is horrifically punishing, dropping everything on death. If you ventured to the bottom of hell and died, the game respects that. You have died. It doesn't matter how long it took you to get down there. And it doesn't matter how difficult it's going to be to get those things back. You had those things on you, and now you aren't. So those things have been left there. They haven't magically come back with you. There's no protection for your precious items if they were to fall into lava when you die. Because as soon as there's a little safety net, the illusion is broken. These items are no longer items in a world that you are holding. They are protected NFTs. They are JPEGs that sit on your hotbar. If an item can be easily destroyed by just dropping it into fire on accident, that makes that item feel real. It makes you feel real. What you've done feel real. If I have a message to the contemporary game designers out there, it's this. If you're planning on having little branches that visibly snap when you step on them, and you're feeling like cutting it because it's not important to the gameplay, or the core loop, or the core experience, or you're deciding to have bodies non-collide with the player once they die because it gets a bit too messy and inconsistent when they're blocking doorways or messing with your movement. Are these going to be the little moments that break the immersion for the player? Are lacking these little moments gonna be what makes the player realize they're not in a world, but they are playing a game. They're controlling pixels on a screen. When people ask, is a game fun? It's a silly question in a way. The next question, obviously, is what is fun? There are an array of different answers, usually with a split in definition, and it's up to taste. I'm telling you, you can have fun playing a game. You can have fun playing a bad game, as you have fun watching a bad movie. But a game being fun, what makes a game fun? I have an answer. And it's straight from the mouth of the Gandalf of gaming himself.
And so we had to come up with some notion of what fun was. We knew it was an ad hoc definition, and it was the degrees to which the game recognizes and responded to the player's choices and actions, right? You know, in behavioral science, you would say we're explicitly talking about what were reinforcers and what the reinforcement schedules were, right? At that point in time, that was a useful way of making design decisions. The point I would make is, if I go up to a wall and shoot it, to me it feels like the wall is ignoring me. I'm getting a narcissistic injury when the world is ignoring me. So does this, like, to me, I was trying to convey to the user a sense of, yes, you were making choices. Yes, you were progressing, which meant the game had to acknowledge that back to you. If you shoot at a wall, there have to be decals. If you kill a bunch of Marines, the Marines have to run away from you, right? You have to have this sense of the game acknowledging and responding to the choices and actions and progressions that you've made. Otherwise, it loses any sort of impact.